So let's talk a little bit more about the principles of using functions. So we saw last week when we talked about decisions that they alter the flow of control through the program. So if you just write a standard program, no if statements, no functions, you just move down each line one after the other. The if statements put in an extra possibility of taking different routes through the code, and functions also change the flow of control through the program. So typically, you have a statement, you have a function call, so something like print, that would be a function call, or something like the output there that we've just got. And what does that do? That goes into the function, runs all the statements in the function, and then goes back to the program where the function was called from. And then we do another statement in the main program. And then maybe you might go to the function call again, and then run through those statements in the function, and then back to the program. So, and then drop down. So the basic flow of control in the main program is just to go line, just go down the program one line at a time. But if one of those lines is a function call, then that drops the flow of control down into the function. Perhaps I should say up into the function, because function is usually declared at the top of the file. It drops it into the function, runs the statements in that function, and then comes back to the main program where the function was called from. And the point about these functions is they are really designed to hide away, like the draw square example I gave you right at the beginning. They're designed to hide away chunks of code that might be doing repetitive tasks, so the statements in this function might be used many, many times as the program runs. Okay, in terms of file structure, in Python, the functions are usually written, defined at the top of the program. So we put the function here, like this example I've just given you. The function output is defined at the top here, and there can be lots of them. You may only have one, like we have here, but you may have defined several in some of the examples we'll see later. And then the main part of the program is written after the function is defined. So the main part of the program, which is this bit where it says number1 string, hopefully you can see my cursor. So that's where the main part of the program starts, at this point here. But in fact, that's the convention that people write it like that. In fact, you can define a function anywhere in the program, but you can't invoke it until after it's defined. So it has to be defined before you can invoke it. So I can't put this def output, I can't put that at the bottom, because that would mean I'm trying to call output before I've told Python what it is. Okay, so it has to go above. This def output has to go above the use output down here. Okay, so there's the main part of the program, and as you'll see, the output is above that. That's the convention. That's the normal way we do it. In terms of execution, when you run a program, the execution of the code starts at the top of the main program. So it doesn't start with this. When Python's executing this code, it ignores all the functions. It says, oh, okay, I know what output function is now, but it doesn't start executing the code at the top of the file. It starts executing the code here, where after it's read all the functions in. And then it proceeds down the file, one line at a time, as we've seen before, and it drops into any functions as they are invoked. So you can see here, we've called this output function. That means the flow of control through the program means the Python drops into this function, does what's inside the function, and then goes back to the main program once it's done that. Okay, and then it drops down a line, goes back. Again, this line is now output, so it drops into the function, it runs that function, and then goes back to where it was called from. This is something that confuses beginners, not for very long, because they get the hang of it, but it can be a little bit confusing to see this code and how it's structured, and how it doesn't no longer sort of flows down the page. It's flowing down the page, if you like, from this point here, from where number1 string is set equal to the input of whatever when we ask the user for their first number. But every time we see an output, it drops into the function and that executes that function. Okay, so in this case, in this particular example, the code inside the function was executed twice because we called output twice. Okay, so here's a quick check for you. I'm going to ask you the question. You can identify the answer, and then I'll tell you what the answer is. We'd normally do this in the lecture theatre, and people would put their hands up, but obviously that's not possible at the moment. So, where does the execution of the program start? So, if you said on line 5, you're correct. It's line 5. That's where the execution starts. As Python reads it in, it doesn't. It understands what this output function is, but it doesn't do anything at this point. It starts executing the program at line 5. In what order are the statements executed? What are the line numbers? Okay, that's quite a long answer, but it's going to be 5, 6, 8, 9, 11, 13, and 14, or possibly if the operation isn't plus, then it'll be 15 and 16. So it'll be 13 plus some of these, not all of them. Then line 18, and when it does line 18, then it drops into the function and runs line 2, and then it comes back to the code, does line 20, but then it drops into the function output and does line 2 again. So that's the order that these statements are executed. It's no longer in a linear, straightforward order. Okay, so I'm going to finish the video there, and then we'll get on to looking at arguments and parameters.